Hello and welcome. I'm Gauhar Raza and you are watching Eureka. Eureka is a program which brings you face to face with nation builders, the scientists. Scientists who have excelled in their own field and have contributed significantly to the field of science. There was a boy who was born in a village in Dehradun. The family was educated. Father has struggled a lot to achieve something that had not been achieved by anybody in the village. That is, he became first graduate from the village. The boy with two sisters were brought up in a very strict, disciplined environment within the family. The motto was, before you get anything, you should deserve it. And that was etched on the memory of this boy. He decided to go abroad and worked for it, excelled, came back to serve the country. Welcome, Dr. Nautiyal.
Thank you.
To Rajya Sabha and Eureka. You had a family which was educated, so you had advantage over millions of young ones in the country, where there was mother who could guide you to get the best of the education, where there was a father who could guide you to get the best education. But then you came from a village where there were hardly any environment for good education. Did it impede your growth initially, or you felt that you are privileged right from the beginning?
I won't consider myself privileged that way, but my father, he was a gazetted officer. So, and his area in Uttar Pradesh, agriculture department. So he kept on moving one place to another. So that way I will say ki indeed we enjoyed the privilege that my father, he could provide us with good education. I mean, I will say ki I have never educated in convent school, but other than that, good schooling, government colleges.
All government schools?
Yes, all government
from one
schools.
place to another place.
Right, that's right. My early childhood up to high school was almost like I started from Christian Christchurch College in Lucknow, initial 3 years, and rest of the childhood up to the high school I spent in Aligarh. And from after doing that, I moved to Lucknow, where I did from Lucknow Christian College the intermediate. Then we moved to the Nainital DSB Government College, which became Kumaon University. After that, back to Lucknow University, and then I did my PhD from MS University, Baroda. And after that, I was in US and Canada for about 10 years. So I must say that I was indeed exposed to many different places. So
and many different cultures.
Many different cultures too. So that way I will say that when you have such an exposure, you see many things, many cultures, like you correctly said, and many backgrounds. But this gives you a very good idea when sometime in future when you grow, then you know how people are, how the culture is, how the education is, and how the society is in general. So then you can have a much more better perspective, I will say, rather being in otherwise I believe that you may have a tunnel vision if you have not been exposed to such a, I can tell you that
way you were definitely privileged.
Yes, I can say
that. You were exposed to so many cultures,
yes,
and different environments, different colleges, different schools, that it helped you to develop a much broader vision.
Absolutely. I mean, I can tell you that in Aligarh, I have even lived on farms, like agriculture department. There was one of the most beautiful farms those days. Agriculture department, very fine. It was almost 60s at the time of Green Revolution, and that farm has, I can tell you that best facilities in terms of 25 or 30, there were Massey Ferguson tractors, jeeps. I mean, that way, I think that was done with the help of US government under PL 480 program, if I can correctly remember it. So very good, and actually I lived on 5 years on farms. So I know exactly, what happens.
That is where you developed
grassroots. Yeah.
developed your interest in agriculture.
Absolutely.
And you decided to take up this as a career.
When I was doing my high school in Aligarh, at the time, one of my maternal uncle, Professor A.N. Purohit, he was going to Canada. And I must say that I just asked him, what he does. So he was a scientist in Shimla, ICR Institute, Potato Research Institute. He left the job, he had gone to Canada. And I said, how do you do it? For that he said, you will have to do PhD for it. And at the time I had no idea what PhD stands for. Maybe I was in 9th class, yeah. So somehow it acted my memory that I want to do PhD. And after that, later on 12th or so in Nainital, I had an opportunity, I could have got into medical profession.
Your exposure in terms of varied schools and a number of colleges and number of places help you to develop a much broader vision. But then you were in the area of science suddenly because of probably maternal uncle. Was he your role model?
I will say that he was my role model in the sense that initially at that time when he said that PhD, so somehow I wanted to do PhD
without knowing what PhD is all about.
Without knowing PhDs. But then like after 12th, there was a time for me to decide, like I said, that I could have gone into the medical profession if I wanted to. Frankly, I could have been in
any other
medical,
any other profession.
So if
you
I
could have
wanted
been an engineer.
Yeah,
because you were always a bright student anyway.
Sir, I will say that I won't say I was a bright, but I will say average, but used to work hard, sincere. But I had a mind where I did not want to cram anything. The subjects, for example, I tell you, like I did MSc in botany. So taxonomy is the subject, you have to cram all those names and all.
Yes, it's a difficult subject.
And honestly speaking, I scored lowest there, and the best I scored was molecular biology and plant physiology. So somehow I always had a inclination for the subjects where you apply a logic. With a logic you understand something rather than cramming. So that way I will say I did it. But after that initial influence, so I knew that I had to do PhD. Later on I realized for that you had to do MSc, so I had opted biology. So I did.
So the goal was very clear that you have to do PhD. For that the route was chalked out much later.
Very focused, and till today I just want to do research.
Do you remember your teacher who decided what you should do PhD on?
After my MSc, I met a very eminent person by chance. Actually, he happened to be a friend of my father. He was senior to him, but they used to meet time to time. And he sent me to him, and his name was Professor T S Sadasivan. He's a Padma Bhushan. I did not know, again, like I said, fresh MSc. So he asked me, like, which are the subjects you are interested. And by the way, this Professor T S Sadasivan, he comes from a very eminent family. His father is Subramaniam Bharati, national poet of Tamil.
Right.
And in fact, he has taught M.S. Swaminathan Sahib. He was Swaminathan Sahab's teacher. So that I came to know later, but not at that time. I was a fresh MSc student. He just told me that which area you are interested. So I gave him 2 areas, biological nitrogen fixation and photosynthesis. So somehow I thought that let me work on biological nitrogen fixation, and that's the area which is now known.
That decided your future.
Yes.
And since then you have never turned back and looked at any other area.
No.
This has been your area of expertise. You worked in Canada, and you also worked in the United States of America. Was it a very different culture that you saw there as compared to India?
I will say, Raza Sahab, that work culture is different in the sense I worked best of the best place, US Department of Agriculture in Beltsville, Maryland.
But you also work with private organizations
yes.
as well as government organizations.
Before coming back to India, I was in a biotech company in Boston, production manager. Initial 4 years I was with US Department of Agriculture, and then I worked with Ciba Geigy, which is now known as Novartis. So we interacted. Canadian University Laval is one of the oldest in North America. And then we were working with in North Carolina State University, Raleigh, and Ciba Geigy at that time, 3 of us, and we had a very good US patent on plant microbial interactions. That's what we did. I mean, but I'll tell you that the best thing I found about, there are 2 things. Number one, if we are talking about the science, I will say that the work culture was excellent. For example, if they are working 9 to 5, they are working 9 to 5. They are not wasting their time, and they are doing their best. And the one more thing which impressed me to no extent, and I wish more and more of our citizens develop that love for their country, that zeal for their country. What I have seen, the proud they feel for their country, whatever they do should be done for the country. I think probably that is one of the reasons which have taken them.
Is it because you saw this work culture and love for the country that you came back to India, or you had decided right in the beginning that I'll go there, get the best of the training and come back and serve the country?
Initially, Raza, I was thinking that I'll work there for 2 or 3 years, but somehow it prolonged into up to almost 10 years. Then there were personal reasons, like I said, that I was brought up very traditionally. So being the only son, my parents, especially my father, he wanted me back. So that's the way it is. So I thought, now let's come back to our country and serve my country. That I wanted to do. And I thought that, okay.
You chose agriculture, and within that you wanted the best of the science to be done for the common man, and that's why probably you chose rhizosphere area, which is under the earth, the plant ecology, the cycle, etc. How does it relate to your research?
To begin with, I will say that my area, as I mentioned earlier, is plant microbe interaction. And as you correctly asked the question, like when we are talking about plant ecology, I will say even existence of human depends on microbes. So I am talking about the soil microbes, the microorganisms which live in soil. Some very senior person asked me, what happens if there were no microbes? I will say we would not have been existing if there were no microbes.
We have evolved from them, number one, and we depend on them.
Yes, I mean, you look at us, I mean, even we have 10% genome from the microbe, and microbe came many millions years before we came. So I wanted to study the microbe which promotes plant growth. And when I came back here, I mean, by the time I already had a US patent under my belt, along with Ciba Geigy, which is Novartis, the most reputed company, I will say multinational company. So I wanted to work in that area, and since then we have last almost 20 years, we have obtained more than 35 patents.
Yes, you have 36 patents to be precise, and another 19 have been filed, which are in the pipeline. I have to take a break. We'll come back soon. The discussion is getting better and better.
इतिहास के खूबसूरत दौर से रूबरू कराती बेमिसाल बावलियां, जो हैं वास्तुकला का अद्भुत नमूना,
जहां आज भी सैलानी बड़ी संख्या में आते हैं और कैमरे में यहाँ की यादें कैद कर ली जाती हैं।
जल्द ही देखिए अस्मिता में एक यादगार सफर, बेमिसाल बावलियां, सिर्फ राज्यसभा टीवी पर।
Hello and a very warm welcome to a brand new edition of World Panorama with me, Frank Pereira.
Barack Obama has been elected on the basis that I will no longer take America into wars, and in fact quite the opposite, I will pull America out of wars.
According to the Indian government, fishermen are not at fault.
The US intervention in Iraq set
the stage for exacerbation of these conflicts and then the intervention in Syria.
Watch World Panorama at these times on Rajya Sabha television.
Welcome back to Eureka. Dr. Nautiyal, we were discussing how agriculture is extremely important for the country and how your research personally, as well as Director of National Botanical Research Institute, has helped the country to progress. There have been many institutes. What are the real achievements when you look back? Because you have had a very long duration existence within Council of Scientific and Industrial Research.
True. I mean, I have the honor and privilege to work with the CSIR for almost more than 20 years after my return from US.
1994. June.
So it's like that. So God being kind for that. I will say that if you were to ask me the major highlights of my achievement, you know that the main, I will say that for CSIR the main or any other research institute will be that whatever research you do should be of some good to the citizen of our country.
The common person on the street.
Correct. So I will say that there are two components, talking in a simple language. One is basic research, another is applied research or fundamental research or applied research, as you may call it. But then thing is, whatever basic research you do must have some applied importance. And this is basically...
But can you have very good applied research without basic research? I don't think so.
Very true. Because basic research only leads to applied research. And that's why, you know, that we have this tradition of having many patents, filing many patents, followed by its publication and leading towards the research. That is the CSIR, and I am so proud that CSIR is one of the best agency in our country who have under its belt maximum number of patents. So that is basically translation research you are indicating. So translation research is extremely important, and the three examples, if you permit, I will like to highlight.
Please go
very briefly. Number one, I will say that agriculture is important. As you know, agriculture is very important for our country because still more than 60% people live on our village, that economy base. So whatever we do benefit must reach them. And I very quickly I'll again mention, you have seen that a year back we had an inflation where even the most developed country got affected. But India fared very well, and one of the reason was because our economy still is major agriculture oriented. It is not industrial as yet. That's another point of debate probably. But for India, agriculture, nobody can deny that is the main strength. So there what we did was that we have come up with novel methods of isolating plant growth promoting microbes, because as you know, pinch of salt, we have millions of microbes. How can you select the best microbe, you know, out of the millions which will promote plant growth? So we have all in public domain number of patents what we have discovered, and these the good
so
ones.
You isolate the good microbes which can help the plant to grow properly and also give a better yield.
Yes. So I mean,
did you achieve it?
Yes, we did, and in fact now we have the microbe which not only promotes plant growth, it also control plant diseases. But basically both the things then leads to the higher yields. So these microbes then we transferred to the Uttar Pradesh agriculture government. They have about 27 biofertilizer manufacturing labs all over Uttar Pradesh. So we were training the officers, and then they were propagating this manufacturing in their own labs and then distributing to the farmers.
It did result into huge savings and more production. So could you tell us about the figures?
Yes, I will say that last 12 years, and it graph is continually growing. Last 12 years, if I summarize it, I will say that almost 80 lakh hectares of the land has been covered, and 350 crore rupees in terms of pesticides farmers have saved. And these are the living microbes, so you cannot exactly say how much yield, but anywhere 15 to 30% increase happens.
That's
and
large increase.
Yeah,
that's a very large increase.
right. And I will say that almost 1800 crore rupees income of the farmers has been generated because we have introduced this particular technique via Uttar Pradesh government, and for that you were awarded by our Honorable Prime Minister 2 years back, one of the highest award in Vigyan Bhavan.
And what was the second technology that you were talking about?
Yes, then it is like while I had an additional charge of CMAP, another Central Institute of Medicinal and Aromatic Plants in Lucknow. So we put together the scientists of the NBRI and CMAP, and then we came up with two products. One product was we use herbal preparation to control diabetes type 2, and that diabetes type 2 again is one of the lifestyle disease which is very quickly spreading. We came up with
and
that.
It's very common now
Very
among
common.
the at least urban population of the country.
And I am happy to tell you that our quality of that work was recognized because a very good company, AML, it has taken this over, let us say about 4-5 months back, and we expect it will come into the commercial production in January 2015. That is what our expectation is. So that is our one contribution, and another contribution again for the society was the gutka. That we have this habit of chewing, many of our citizens have this, they have gutka which has tobacco in it. So what we did, we developed a gutka, we did not have tobacco, but it had many good properties like...
And tobacco is responsible for 90% of oral cancer.
Yes, absolutely.
And therefore you had this problem posed by the society that if tobacco is taken off and people still have something to chew, then maybe the disease can be overcome.
Absolutely. I mean, this is another societal benefit like you were mentioning that we should contribute.
But the institute has existed for a very long time and has contributed a lot to science as well as the national economy. Do you remember some of the other examples?
Well, one of the major example which comes to my mind is that in NBRI we have been working last 6 years or so, and now we have come with a variety, that arsenic problem persists right from eastern Uttar Pradesh right through the Bihar, Odisha up to the West Bengal. Now we have come up with a variety of the rice which is, mind you, just existing, there is no genetic modification or anything in it, which variety has a very low arsenic uptake, like the permissible limit if you grow in the area which has arsenic contaminated, if you grow this rice, so the arsenic content in the grain is very, very low, then it does not causes the problem which are otherwise associated with arsenic. And we are working on this with the West Bengal Agriculture Department on it, and then hopefully by next year we will be releasing this variety. Because this will affect and prevent lot of diseases, cancers and many other ulcers, and so many problems happens. This we will do. And the successive example of the Uttar Pradesh, we were talking about bioinoculant, we have also passed it on to the Meghalaya government, and my understanding is that Meghalaya government is very happy with this, and given the time, slowly we are going to propagate.
That is how we are trying to build the nation.
Absolutely.
That is how we are trying to help the common man and improve his economic conditions. That is how the education to the next generation would be passed on. Your contribution personally and as director has been recognized by many agencies. You are member of so many boards across the country as well as abroad. What is the most satisfying position that you have held?
Satisfying position, I will say that where I get an opportunity to do science, and that is what CSIR
that
has
is your
provided
passion.
me. Yeah, my passion is to do science, absolutely no doubt about it. And
how much time do you spend on doing science, because you are heading 2 institutes at the moment?
Usually I work 6.5 days a week, without any gusted holiday or whatever, doesn't matter to me. And I will say that administrative work I spend no more than 2 or 3 hours max. Rest of the time I still devote working with our scientists, promoting their interest, especially the young scientists. I love to promote them and make sure that whatever benefits we have procured, we pass it on to them and lead them to a good quality work which will be fruitful and useful for our citizens, especially the underprivileged. That is, I will say, my motto has been so far, and God willing I will continue.
This is your motto.
Yes.
Would you like to pass on similar motto to the younger generation? Would you like to sign off with some message to younger generation?
I will say, first of all, love your country. You must take pride that you should work for your country. Another thing, area, if given the, some time, and I still do, that we should be very proud of our heritage. And it pains me, when I see that some of the work when people do, I will say, it is like Western culture oriented, because in our heritage there are so many good things which should be done. And I have tried to do a lot of scientific validation of our heritage. So many things are still available and we should work on it. We should not work on the problem which are Western science oriented. We should be related to our country, because this is what sometimes happen. We simply import the technology but which is not relevant to our country. We should, such a wide diversity we have got, we are blessed with that. We should exploit that to our advantage for our citizens. And I will tell our citizens and young scientists, young students, that take pride in your country and take pain to see where the problem lies, how to solve it, so that our citizen can benefit. When they benefit, our country will grow and shine.
Our country will grow and shine when the younger generation takes problems of the country,
Yes.
of the common citizen. Thank you very much for giving so much of time to Eureka and Rajya Sabha channel.
My pleasure, Varsa.
Work on the problems of the country. We have a large country and we have large problems. Scientific work and excellence in science can solve these problems. That is the message we carry back home today. Dr. Nautiyal, once again, thank you very much. If you have any question, query or any comment, please do write to us at eurekarstv@gmail.com. We'll be very happy to answer your questions. That's all for now. Thank you for watching Eureka. Goodbye.